There is enough scientific data that points to a concern for increased cancer rates in humans.
Well, the whole rBGH thing represents fundamental flaws in the regulatory process.
We allow BGH to go on and ensure that we are taking excessive risk with society.
Our choices about the foods we eat are among the most important decisions we make about our health. Our bones, organs, and cells are built of food. Even our mood, energy level, and ability to think clearly are affected by what we buy at the grocery store. As our food changes, so do we. But are the changes taking place in our food supply beneficial? Consider milk, the traditional symbol of purity and nutrition, especially for children. But some milk has undergone a radical change. It's not the same wholesome milk our grandparents drank. And many experts believe this altered milk is leading to cancer and other serious problems. The altered dairy products were introduced in 1994 when farmers started injecting their cows with rBGH.
rBGH stands for recombinant bovine growth hormone, which means genetically engineered bovine growth hormone. rBGH is also known as rBST. It's the same thing. It is a genetically engineered hormone developed to force cows to produce more milk, typically 5 to 15% more milk.
It speeds up their metabolism, where they will eat more feed and they'll give more milk.
Jeffrey Smith is an international best-selling author and expert on the health risks of genetically engineered foods.
Nearly 1 out of every 6 dairy cows in the United States are injected with this pharmaceutical drug, which critics call crack for cows. Studies show that it decreases the nutritional content while it increases the amount of antibiotics, the amount of hormones, and the amount of pus. It's marketed by Monsanto under the brand name Posilac, and they want more cows in this stuff.
Of course, you'll want to inject Posilac to every eligible cow, as each cow not treated is a lost income opportunity.
To make rBGH, scientists take genes from cows and insert them into E. coli bacteria. The new genetically engineered E. coli then produces the cow's hormone. Bovine growth hormone stimulates another powerful hormone called IGF-1, insulin-like growth factor 1. The milk from treated cows has much higher levels of IGF-1, and that's a big problem.
Dr. Jenny Pompilio of Oregon Physicians for Social Responsibility told a TV interviewer why her organization is trying to get rBGH taken off the market.
But we at Oregon PSR believe in the science, and there is enough scientific data that points to a concern for increased cancer rates in humans. rBGH increases the IGF-1 in cow's milk, and this is not disputed. It's also not disputed that elevated levels of IGF-1 can promote cancer in humans.
A Harvard study showed that men with high levels of IGF-1 are 4 times more likely to develop prostate cancer. Premenopausal women are 7 times more likely to develop breast cancer. It's implicated in lung and colon cancer. And a recent study implicated IGF-1 in a higher rate of fraternal twins. In fact, in the United States, we have twice the rate of increase of fraternal twins than in the UK, where rBGH is banned.
Almost all the industrialized countries of the world have banned this. This includes Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Japan, and all 25 countries of the European Union. Not only that, but the Codex Alimentarius, which is the UN's main food safety body, voted and said we cannot guarantee that this is safe.
A European Commission report stated that avoidance of rBGH dairy products in favor of natural products would be the most practical and immediate dietary intervention to achieve the goal of preventing cancer.
The approval of rBGH in 1993 was probably one of the most controversial decisions the FDA ever made.
There's a revolving door between Monsanto and the FDA. The person in charge of policy at the FDA when rBGH was approved was Michael Taylor, Monsanto's former attorney and later their vice president. Margaret Miller worked on rBGH issues doing research for 5 years at Monsanto and then became FDA branch chief in the division that evaluated her own research. Susan Sechin worked for Monsanto doing research on rBGH and then became the primary FDA review officer for rBGH. One of the main problems with the FDA review of the drug was that they treated it as an animal drug and didn't look at it as a human drug. So they failed to take into consideration most of the possible health effects.
A human drug requires 2 years of carcinogenicity testing and extensive birth defect testing. BGH milk was tested 90 days on 30 rats at any dose before it was approved.
Well, the whole rBGH thing represents fundamental flaws in the regulatory process. The outside influence, the lack of proper structure, proper personnel to do the job that we trust them to do. The FDA does no studies. The companies do the studies, and they send the paperwork to the FDA, who then reviews it. I found flaws in it that, according to regulation and good science, should have been addressed. This was approved prematurely without adequate information.
When Dr. Burroughs kept demanding more tests, they said he was holding up the approval process, and so they fired him.
If we allow BGH to go on, I'm sure that we are taking excessive risk with society.
Monsanto dismisses the concerns of scientists and physicians around the world.
It's unfortunate that the public is being scared, in other words, being frightened by an issue that shouldn't be of concern.
One former Monsanto scientist told me that his colleagues who were doing safety studies on rBGH switched to organic milk for themselves because they were concerned about the health risks.
This is not something that knowledgeable people have concerns about.
When scientists in the Canadian government reviewed the FDA's approval of rBGH, they wrote a scathing report saying that the FDA's approval failed to properly address the human safety requirements of the drug, including possible sterility, infertility, birth defects, cancer, and immunological derangements.
Posilac is the single most tested new product in history and is now available to you specifically so you can increase your profit potential.
Canadian government scientists testified in 1994 that they were being pressured to approve rBGH even though they thought it was unsafe. The documents were stolen from a locked file cabinet in a government office, and that Monsanto's representative offered them $1 to $2 million to approve the drug without further study. This alleged bribe was part of the coverage of a 4-part news series prepared by Fox television reporters Jane Acree and Steve Wilson.
Monsanto Canada, whose representatives allegedly raised the subject of money at
In the fall of 1994, Canadian television quoted a Canadian health official as reporting that Monsanto offered $1 to $2 million if her government committee would recommend BGH approval in Canada without further data or studies of the drug. Another member of her committee who was present when Monsanto made the offer was asked, "Was that a bribe?"
Is that how it struck you?
Certainly. Monsanto said the report alleging bribery was a blatant untruth, and that Canadian regulators just didn't understand the offer of money was for research. Monsanto demanded a retraction. The Canadian Broadcasting Company stands by its story.
The FDA doesn't require labels on dairy products from cows treated with rBGH. In fact, Monsanto sued dairies that labeled their products as rBGH free. In 2003, for example, Monsanto sued Oakhurst Dairy for labeling on their carton "no artificial hormones." Oakhurst had to settle with Monsanto by including a disclaimer sentence on their carton, which said, FDA states, no significant difference in milk from cows treated with artificial hormones.
Oregon PSR strongly disagrees with this disclaimer because of the scientific data that we've been talking about today.
Investigative reporter Jane Acree said this concept that there's no difference in the milk from cows treated with rBGH is one of many fabrications that she discovered while doing an investigative report on rBGH for a Fox TV station in Tampa.
The deceptions from Monsanto, the deceptions were numerous. The milk, the cornerstone is the milk is the same wholesome product that it's always been.
What they need to know is that the milk hasn't changed. And that's the important thing here. The milk hasn't changed.
And that was something that they kept repeating. And even though you could show them their own studies that show there's an increase in IGF-1, I mean, it's certainly not the same product. How can you be saying that?